G'day, Kane. We're back at it.
Hey Gabe,
Another
how are you,
episode.
mate? You
Going all
looking
right.
fresh?
Feeling fresh. Ready for a big week. Maybe slightly less fresh on a shoot on a Monday morning. Um, but I did learn a thing or two about smoking a good brisket on the weekend, so that's excellent.
Critical to life
But
success, mate. Yeah.
absolutely.
I know.
Yeah, so I think
I
today is a good opportunity for us to chat a bit about what's been
Yep,
popping up in conversations with
yep,
customers recently, this challenge of building leadership beyond yourself and the opportunities and the
yep,
traps in that.
yep.
Um, but before we go into that, how are you traveling? How's things in
No,
Co?
I think always well, mate. No, a friend of mine, his definition of middle-aged is when it gets to the weekend and your first thought is your excitement at the idea of smoking meat. So it sounds like you might meet his definition, mate. But
I most
no,
certainly
I
would.
think the topical sort of thought for me at the moment is yeah, I've been thinking a lot about building leadership beyond myself and the organization. It's something I'm seeing lots of different guys and businesses tackle in different ways. And the one opportunity, I think it's the greatest opportunity to build that decentralized leadership. But then it's also in some ways the most difficult concept, around the time, energy, focus, that I we it mentality over a sustained, it doesn't happen over a few weeks. You can't just hand over, function leadership overnight or strategic vision of the organization as well. And
Yeah.
I thought we could explore that today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I run into this reality every week through the work we do, where the the answer to an independent business, a business that can do well but is not so dependent on the owners. The answer to that is an exceptional group of leaders that can lead that business on your behalf in service of your vision. But that is a very difficult thing to do. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time to build that capability. And that has to become your most important job as an owner for the next few years is to develop that capability inside your business.
Yeah, correct. And what do you think, if you were to think of a business or businesses that do it well, what are the common traits that exist in that conversation?
So I think two things that I see happen where that leads to success. Number one, the owner or the ownership team makes that commitment to make the investment over a long period of time, and then they lean in. So they lean into leadership for the next 3 years, and they lean into the development of the next generation of leaders, and they lean into the discipline of good handover over time so that they're still around when most of the decision rights have been handed over and they can see that things are stable and then they start to
Yeah,
wind out systematically.
yeah.
So that's the
So
one thing because
that's
the
sort
trap
of
there is that rushed handover, right? I'm going to hire
yeah,
a general manager. They're
yeah.
going to come run the show for me. I want to sit back here, but I didn't hand over
We'll come
properly,
back to
so
the
now I'm scared.
general
Yeah,
manager
yeah,
phenomenon. But with
yeah,
so yeah, I like the idea then. I remember back, with Bill early on, for me, it was quite formative idea. It's this with leadership, it's like handing the baton in a relay race where there's a period of time where both runners are holding the baton at the same time versus the classic challenge that we see with SME
handball.
business owners is
Yeah,
handball. Yeah, that ball's midair for that period of time where you're just really thinking, Get me away from this thing. You take it."
yeah.
And and that's the challenge. I think when people leave leadership too late, and I think
Mhm.
yes, often we get confused between management versus leadership, and you see these, quite often, the superpower of the great SMEs is the ability to extract themselves from the day-to-day operations and, build in the resilience around, how they just manage their throughput. Yeah, and you have lots of great, ruthless email executors. It's in, out, responsive. Um, they're just smashing that ball back over the net all day. But the reality is it keeps coming back faster and faster. And you can only hit so many balls, right? So yeah, how do you build that capacity through the team around you first, and then develop some true sense of leadership?
Yeah, I mean, you think about any good sporting captain or sporting leader, right? If you're in a team and you are hoping to hand over leadership to somebody else in the team, it makes a lot of sense that you guys play shoulder to shoulder for a good season or two, and you're able to impart as much of that knowledge and wisdom as you can, and then you hand over the leadership to the new captain, and you're still around probably for another season in that support before you can step away and go, look, at there's decent legacy that I've left now, and there's good, capable leadership that he's taking this team forward. I think the other thing that I see that is a big trap is business owners are the entrepreneurial leaders of their business, and they do not pay enough um, weight to the importance of the role of an entrepreneurial leader, the entrepreneurial engine, that personality that will smash through walls, that will not take no for an answer, that will put your noses out of joint to try and advance the business's cause, right? The energy of that human, the tank that keeps driving the wheels, right? That's how the business came to be in the first place, is from your entrepreneurial energy. Now, what I see often is that owners hand over to a leadership team in a rush, and then they've not ensured that there's a new entrepreneurial energy on that team, right? And so then they step away, and they've done a poor handover, and you've got good operational leaders or even maybe strategic leaders to keep the trains on track, but there's nobody there
Yeah,
that's going to
yeah,
pull out the big hammer when
making it
something needs a
rain.
smash. And that successor is very difficult to find. An entrepreneurial successor, it's very hard to find.
Yeah, yeah.
And you've got
What
to
are the
put real
traits
strategy towards finding that.
yeah, what are the characteristics I think that sit in that entrepreneurial successor? And there'd be a few that would come to mind. Yeah. What is it, something that, what would you look for if you're looking into a business and I come to you and say, Gabe, is this the right person? What's the vibe check that you want?
So for me, there has to be a massive self drive. They just naturally have to have a self drive. They don't need somebody to tell them to get after it. Number one has to be. Number two, they have to have the personal conviction in their capability to take on the role, and the courage to
Yeah,
push the owners out of the way at some point. There's going to come a stage where maybe you've identified a good entrepreneurial leader and you're in the process of handing over. It's still going to be hard to let go. It's still going to be hard to trust, and you're
yeah,
still going to be fearful, and you're still going to be a little bit reactive, and you're sometimes still going to jam your hand in the cookie jar. And that new entrepreneurial leader needs to have the personal conviction to say, look, I've got this, let me go. Like, I understand, just let me do this, let me show you. And say, for example, look, you don't have those decision rights anymore. You've given them to me. Trust me to deliver. Let me do this, right? And then just that gentle, like, it's time to step aside. Let me do the thing that you've brought me in to do, and then learn together. And at that point, you need an owner who's willing to trust and let go and see, and you need a leader who's willing to say, look, let me have a crack at this. So that's definitely
yeah.
key. And I think there's going
Do
to
you
be
think it?
there's one other thing that's critical, I think, for a good entrepreneurial successor, and they need to have a unreasonable give a shit or an unreasonable connection to the mission for this business, whatever it is, whether you're selling plastic molded products or whether you're, professional services, or trying to take over the world with good SME stewardship like us. The person that's going to take over that entrepreneurial engine, there needs to be an unreasonable desire to tackle the problem, because the problem is always going to be harder than you expect. And you need, as a handing over owner, you need the confidence that that person's going to stick around when the shit hits the fan.
Yeah, that's right. Do you think there needs to be equity involved for that succession entrepreneur?
I think a true entrepreneurial successor would insist on it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think somebody who's genuinely entrepreneurially minded know their worth and would
Mm,
not want to create a ton of value and not be able to share in that. And so I think number one, it's a good filter that's the kind of person that you're dealing with. But number two, if you've got an unreasonable commitment to the cause and you got skin in the game, there's that final incentive to not give up when the going gets tough. Because you
yeah,
also want to have
that's right.
your financial day in the sun because of the effort that you've put in.
Yeah, yeah. It can't be skin in the game, that's for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
it's I think it's just more of a phenomenon that we're going to see more and more over this next decade, next 10 to 20 years. We've seen, uh, there's this huge baby boomer succession
Mm.
underway. Um, yeah, I'm really curious around what that looks like. And I also confident that if it's done well, there's great opportunity for that successor to come through. And regularly I have people, coming, through our office and we have the conversations around wealth creation, and for me there's no better opportunity right now than to be the successful entrepreneurial successor of
Mm.
of one of these baby boomer businesses. They've got strong cash flow, maybe limited adoption of technology. There's lots of low hanging fruit, especially
There's
around
the
that branding
opportunity, right?
pillar. Exactly. You can hit the ground running, cash flow fund it from day dot. And so, a question I have: do you see very often successful succession when it's driven bottom up, or would you say it's better to come top down? And I guess how do you create this level of awareness with the existing decision right holder or vision custodian of the business?
Uh, I think, man, that's a good question. And I don't think this is, it's always going to be
Give me a
nuanced.
percentage weighting. That's right. There's always edge cases, but
Yeah,
what
look,
would your
I'd say
preference
for
be?
the
Like, what
most part,
someone comes to
for the
you,
most part,
yeah,
yeah, for the most part, I think it needs to be driven by the exiting owner.
yeah,
Yeah, because it's
yeah,
their asset, right? It's their legacy. They are ultimately responsible for the ongoing success of this thing, if that's what they want, right? And
yeah,
so they
correct,
have to drive the handover. They have to drive the strategizing around what does the right entrepreneurial successor look like and what does the right next generation of leadership team look like. And then they have to invest in it. It is an investment in your independence. You have to spend money and time, a
mm,
lot of it,
mm,
to solve this problem. Now, the return comes back to you 10, 20 times, no dramas, but you have to commit to that investment. Right? And then you have to drive that handover from the beginning and see it through. Now, if you've done a good job of selecting the right next entrepreneurial leader and developing the right next leadership team, once they've found their footing, then they will start to drive the handover, right? They
yeah,
will start to go, all right, look,
yeah,
we've got this. You can hand this one over. Let us take this one from you. Actually, your best contribution would be there, but it has to start owner in, and then eventually that dynamic will shift.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think if it was pushed from internally, then the owner would struggle to let go. You just won't have the buy-in
yeah,
from the
yeah,
the decision right holder.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. And if you were to put a time frame on that, though, like I'm going to say it's a 3 year process minimum.
Minimum. I agree with that. Look, we have helped owners transition off within 18 months. Um, but to their credit, they invested a lot of time and
Foundations
energy
are
to
in,
make it
a- and
successful,
they've,
and
yeah,
there was good
yeah,
foundations here. But
yeah, yeah,
whenever I meet new potential customers who are exploring this kind of transition in their business, I'll say to them quite honestly, this is not a easy fix and it's not a fast fix. You need to be prepared to invest in this for 3 to 4 years to get a good outcome.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
But we were
And then
talking
so let's
about. Sorry, you go. You
let's
asked.
get. I want to get Uncle Billy fired up. Let's then transition into this conversation around the general manager phenomenon and the highly paid dysfunctional board phenomenon. And I guess what does that look like if yeah, what are some, I guess, horror stories, but then also how can that work for you? Potentially, there's
The trap and
always
the opportunity.
ways of, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Look, I do think that there's two very common traps here, and a real opportunity. The trap, I believe, and you and I we've seen this a lot, how often the general manager concept fails, hiring a GM. It doesn't work out. And also having a board, an advisory board that instructs your leaders, and then that doesn't work out either. I believe the reason why that's a trap is most of the time owners will invoke that as an option because they are either unwilling or scared to make the
yeah,
personal investment, to own the personal investment
yeah,
in the development of the future leaders. So they were trying to outsource it by either hiring somebody to come and run the show, but then they've often not done a proper handover and they've not done decent role clarity. So this person steps into ambiguity. They're sort of resourced, but they don't really have the true decision rights. They do their best. The owner keeps interfering. Eventually, the general manager either goes, "Well, stuff this, I'm out," or the owner goes, "Well, you're not doing a good job, bugger off," and the owner is back in. Right? I've seen
yeah,
that story so
yeah,
many times. It
yeah,
doesn't work because you've, number one, tried to hand over leadership to one person, not a team. So that's fragile. That person can get hit by a bus or they can get sick of it and leave, and then you're back where you started.
yeah.
And
Behind where you started.
you've not handed up. Yeah, absolutely. Behind where you started, you've not handed over the decision rights properly.
Yeah,
Um, and the
yeah,
same with the advisory board. I think owners who are scared or not sure of how to develop the future people will hire other smart people who's done it before and say you're on our advisory board, and then sometimes the people who are highly capable, highly well-meaning professionals will provide
yeah,
advice that sometimes turns into direction to a leadership
yeah,
team or directives to a
yeah,
leadership team, but they're not in the business. They actually haven't got skin in the game, and they haven't got the information. They're too far removed. They're all running their
yeah,
own businesses.
yeah,
And so then what
yeah,
happens is they don't really have the decision rights of ownership, but they're instructing leaders as if they do. That does not bode well for a leadership team. Leaders don't respond well to that kind of directive from people who are not in the trenches with them. And that starts to erode trust. And then sometimes it will force a leadership team to try and take a strategic action that's not the right call because again it was advice from people that weren't close enough to the information. And again, I believe that decision gets made because an owner is trying to create handover, but they're not willing or not sure how to invest
mm,
in the development of their
mm,
people first. So
yeah.
that's my
No, I agree.
articulation of the trap. What's been your observation?
Yeah, look, lots of funny memories. um, I think of one example with a business owner, and we're sitting down frustrated with the general manager, and we broke down, well, what is it that the owner wanted the general manager to do, and then how much time did they want to assign to each one of those tasks or functions in the organization, and broke down to 82 hours a week. And so it was a real light bulb moment there for the business owner to realize, wow, this is not sustainable. And yeah, no wonder, yeah, they're time poor and disconnected. So um, I think realistically, there's some luck involved too to have the right person, right time, with an authentic entrepreneurial spirit. But then, for me, if that curiosity presents itself as a business owner, you just need to get on the front foot, get proactive, and launch into the conversation. Because the challenge is too, we all have a limited time span in our professional front, and if you leave it for too long, or you don't try, early enough, if you get it wrong, you run out of time. And my concern is that you don't want to see business owners transacting on the sale by effectively closing the doors or having to then um, sell at stock price or, fundamentally at, could be plant and equipment, just have a sale. And there could be 50 years of history in that business or
Mm,
opportunity or brand or leverage that just goes begging. And I feel like, if I put my regional lens on that for our communities, that's the big opportunity is if we can really facilitate the conversations proactively and lean into the fact that we are, every business and every owner has a sense of mortality. Some great conversations will come out of that. And ultimately it comes back to that role clarity too, to understand, well, what is it that we need to do and the nuances of that. It's pretty
yeah.
crazy. And I feel like, that disconnection of the board, it's obviously it's corporate ideology that's been copied as conventional wisdom, and we only see over and over now the actual inadequacy of the boards, and they're yeah. If you've got thousands of people in your business, they have no idea what's actually happening. They're just taking some curated information and interpreting it in a way that is positive for their own self-esteem, from what I've seen. Yeah.
Mm.
No,
Yeah,
I think.
I was just going to say on that
Oh, and
story of the general manager role that you guys pulled
yeah,
apart, and it,
yeah,
that's a great exercise on role clarity. And I've got a fantastic visual aid that shows the difference between a position description and a stack of
yeah,
roles. So, if any of the
yeah,
listeners, if you're interested, just send me an email and I'll send you the link. It's publicly available, but it gives a visual explanation of why a position description is confusing to a leader like a general manager, and why a stack of roles with clearly defined accountabilities and decision rights is a better way to go. So, and I'll share that.
yeah,
But I think,
yeah. Cool.
from your perspective, how would you state what is the opportunity for owners in building
Mm,
leadership that extends beyond themselves?
mm. Oh, look, I think it's this proactivity. And say, for example, if you're a local electrical business and there's a young fella that's gone and you see him driving around in his van on his own, he's hustling to get started and he's got that drive. I feel like that's the level of proactivity required to go, hey, bud, let's grab a coffee. I can see you want to have a crack. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm a bit battle weary. And, but I've also learnt a lot along the way. And then so how could we work together? And how could you leverage the work that I've done to fast track your own career development? And I think they're the conversations that are missing and lacking. And, that's why succession isn't working most of the time without some support. So that's the one thing I would look at. It's like, what's that kid, that you see that has those behaviors that you've probably seen in yourself at that age? And then that values alignment, I think, can underpin a really healthy, dynamic conversation. And it's not
Yeah,
something you want to rush either. Like, I feel like even for us, we have people that join our business that are 12 to 24-month conversations in advance, multiple meetings, but not in a forced way. And they're not even super structured. It's more about the vibe for me. And
building
is that
trust, right?
consistency in behavior and curiosity. That's right. Exactly. And I think that's the key theme. If you were to say, what is the opportunity? It's like, just build trust. And how do you build trust? It's time, energy, commitment,
Time.
doing what you said you're going to do. Yeah. And that is also the trap. Because if you don't give it the time, eventually something will get you.
Well, you've just got to understand that your most important role for the next 3 years is the development of these future leaders.
Yeah.
You've got
Yeah.
to make time to do that
100%.
job for a while. And from my perspective, there is an opportunity here around the general manager or the board, right? And I think the opportunity is that accept that to get true handover, you need to be happy that there's somebody that's leading entrepreneurially in your place. That's typically what they try to do with the general manager, but get somebody that you have a lot of faith in that will bring the entrepreneurial energy when you're not there anymore. But also, don't hand over leadership to a person. Build a team that can lead on your
Yeah.
behalf and have that
Yeah.
entrepreneurial leader part of that leadership team. I think that is the real opportunity. And then around the board aspect, I do think that there is the chance to benefit greatly from smart people's advice, but to do it properly, get the roles clear that as a member on this group of advisors, this is the role. This is your role is to provide uh, eldership, wisdom, experience, insight, advice on certain topics. And that advice is either to a strategic leadership team who has the decisions over strategy, learn from, hear from, get inputs from the group of advisors, and then make smart decisions
Yep.
in strategy, or that advice
Yep.
comes to the ownership team around capital decisions and vision decisions. And then that ownership team have the relationship with smart people, get input, but make the decisions here. So I think
Yep.
there is a way that you can
Yep.
set it up so it's useful.
I like it. All right. Let's wrap that,
Um,
Gabe. I think good
what?
chats.
Yeah, thank you very much for making time for us. And I think we'll definitely try to get James back on in one of the next episodes because he's actually got good stories of building leadership capability that extends beyond
Yeah.
himself whilst he's still leading there in the process of handing over. So,
100%. Yeah, I like it.
all right,
Yeah.
have a good week.
Look forward to it. All right. Thank you, buddy.
See ya.
Cheers.